Attention higher leaders, it's time to shake up your marketing and enrollment strategy. Join us at Insights EDU February 17th to the 19th, 2026 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida for a beachfront experience and the best higher education marketing and enrollment management conference. Early bird pricing ends December 15th, 2025. Register now at insightsedu.com. The future unbound is at Insights EDU 2026.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you here on another episode of the EdUp Experience. And, you know, lately I've been reflecting a lot as I get to interact with colleagues at conferences and travel. And we had Higher Ed PodCon, which was our first conference. How interesting and lucky this job here as host of the EdUp Experience feels. I'm doing some self-reflection, but I get to create friendships and associations with people across years. And you just wonder, like, you stay in touch with people here and there, you see them here and there. Sometimes businesses intersect in very funny ways that brings you back together with people. And it shows you how important and small the higher education community is. That you will at some point see that person again that you left. Maybe you left the university. You're going to see that person again. They're going to be at another university. You're going to be working right alongside them. So keeping these relationships together is so important. And I've got somebody here with me today who has the same title, but for a much different type of organization now. He's still a CEO, but of something a little bit different. He's going to tell us what. And I interviewed him on December 9th of 2020. So you can imagine how different our conversation was then to now. And in fact, I can have them transcribed and compared with artificial intelligence now to say what's different. But the institution that he represents is and has been on the move for many years and has had some huge wins and gains. And I'm really excited to bring that positivity about change and growth to the podcast here today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring him in right now. And in fact, let me just say before, and I didn't really prepare him, but in 2020, in December 2020, I did not have a soundboard with in-episode sound effects, but I do now. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. He's Mikhail Schneider. He is the CEO of Nightingale Education Group. Mikhail, welcome back after 5 years.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, time flies. I looked back and I didn't realize how long it's been, essentially, since we've seen each other.
And we've stayed in touch this whole time at different parts here and there for different things. And it's amazing that time, just to your point, just disappeared. And here we are, grayer, a little bit grayer.
Yeah, indeed.
Smarter, perhaps, a little bit more intelligent. More grizzled. I honestly, we're grizzled and battle tested. And you know what? We're in a different world. Okay, we're in a different world. 2020 was a very different time. That was pre-COVID that we entered. Right after that, COVID hit, and boy, oh boy, did what you do become pretty important. So, for somebody that hasn't listened to that episode or doesn't know Nightingale, tell us about the institution. Tell us about Nightingale. Tell us how you've evolved to Nightingale Education Group, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, Joe. Thanks. Well, you're right. When we met, COVID just hit, and we were trying to figure things out. Although I can tell you, as I mentioned on that episode as well, we were likely one of the very few, if not the only, pre-licensure nursing school, Nightingale College, that did not skip a beat, essentially, with COVID, and we were able to continue progressing students. We call them learners, enrolling them, and we have grew actually quite a bit during that time through those few years, because we were so ready to take on a challenge that we didn't foresee. right? So I keep saying now in retrospect is that we, we were preparing for something. We didn't know what we were preparing for, but we were ready because of how our educational model worked then, and it works now, obviously with much more technology, but it is essentially a fully distributed, geographically distributed pre-licensure nursing education model to where all of our learners, all across the United States, currently we have enrollment in all 50 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and they can stay at home for the vast majority of their educational journey, no matter where they live, no matter whether it's an urban community or a rural community. And so this model that is very technology forward, obviously we were using the first kind of foray into virtual simulations and things like that back in 2020. And now that technology has evolved quite a bit, and it has AI built into it. But the fact remains, we are able to serve these communities that are traditionally have been overlooked by higher ed, and specifically nursing education, and we're successfully doing so. Again, several thousand now. We're actually barreling toward 10,000.
10,000 students.
Yes,
amazing,
yes,
amazing.
Nice, and continue serving those students at Nightingale College. Now, what we've figured out along the way in the past 5 years, and how Nightingale Education Group really has evolved, is that in order to be able to be on the forefront of developing educational delivery models and honing them and figuring out what's next, we needed a division that would do just that. And so we call it Nightingale Innovations. And Nightingale Innovations develops now educational technologies and VR, for example, AI-driven technologies. And then college becomes the first client, essentially, that pilots it and drives it forward. And then these technologies become available for licensing, right, for other folks. So that's innovations. And the other big piece that I have been trying to figure out for a very long time, and I actually, December this year is going to be 20 years of my working in higher ed in nursing education, and to which I came as a complete outsider from managing services.
Say, this is exactly what you thought you'd be doing, right?
Yeah, nursing services for a while, and so all 20 years have been trying to figure out why are we getting the outcomes essentially systemically, right, that we're getting in nursing education. We're so short of nurses. Employers constantly say that nurses are not prepared or new grads essentially not prepared to practice when they get into the workforce. And so kind of thinking about it and trying to solve it, I've also stumbled into this, right? That if you start looking all the way upstream, and on the last episode, we talked about regulatory kind of barriers that exist in nursing education from state to state to state. They're different, but they're barriers nevertheless. And then there's also financial barrier, right?
Yep.
And the financial barrier, obviously, some folks just cannot afford it and have to rely on, most everybody in the United States has to rely on Title IV and federal funding and those programs in order to be able to at least attempt to afford education. And yet the payor itself, right, the U.S. Department of Education, has been so disconnected from the outcomes that are needed out there. And what we've been, this financing system of completely disconnected payor that pays for counting the hours rather than any outcomes or competencies or anything like that, leads us to this outcome. So what we decided to do is really start pivoting toward getting employers involved both in sponsoring the education of their employees or future employees, and also informing it, right? Like not just your, check mark advisory board that's required by accreditation, but truly informing the competencies they're looking for, that are needed to develop. And so that's how we created Nightingale Solutions. And that's a piece of the company that works directly with employers and creates these relationships, and essentially works on helping them with their workforce development needs. So that's in a nutshell. And then running both the college as the president and all this other stuff became too much. And a couple of years ago, yeah, precisely, I stepped away from day-to-day college operations and more into this really strategic role with the larger organization. So yeah, and it's been really good.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's if you look at the number of episodes that I record, it's not often that you hear this story of rapid growth in higher ed.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember how many students you had last time we spoke, but I think it might have been 5,000 or so.
Oh no. We were much smaller than that at the time.
Yeah.
So actually, I can tell you this: in May, because I have a vintage T-shirt. We do, that's a company thing. We do T-shirts, and so I just saw it in my closet. It's a red shirt, and it was May of 2020.
Okay.
And it said on the shirt that in May of 2020, we crossed 1,000 student enrollment and 1,000 graduates at that time.
Wow.
For the entire history of the
so
company.
If you go to December when we recorded, I mean, maybe you're a little over 1,000.
1,200 perhaps, yeah.
So from 5 years later, not even five, close. Yeah. You're at almost 10,000. That is
or at least seven.
Air, my friend.
seven times larger than we were 5 years ago. Yeah.
The
by enrollment.
Most interesting part about that conversation would be, besides the fact that that's really unprecedented growth, and it shows you, efficiency of operation, just so much in there. But thinking through strategically growth is this mindset that many are not thinking about right now. It's expense cutting. It's, maintaining. When you go from 1,000 students to nearly 10,000, you've got to change rapidly. You need to hire people. You need to bring on new technologies. You need to make sure that you hire people in advance of those students coming in. So you're almost putting in, you're really investing in the organization by staffing up in advance of these big student classes. You're going to end up with retention problems as you figure out your model. Then you perfect those problems down the line. Talk about how you prepared your staff and how you mentally prepared for something that maybe you didn't even expect fully.
Awesome. Great question. And I absolutely agree. The company doesn't look anything like it was 5 years ago today, and it keeps continually evolving. At the core of it, however, and look, I'm first and foremost org development geek. Being a nurse and being a CEO and all of this, I love figuring out organizations, right, and how to drive this. And it's been my passion for ever since I've gone to business school. I kind of caught that bug of, how do you harness the energy of humans, right? That are within the organization, and what do you do? So from the very beginning, and Nightingale has been around for, I've been there and running the company for close to 14 years now. But from the very beginning of it, first and foremost, I wanted to create an organizational framework that will set up the company really, really well, and everybody who is in it to be able to drive through whatever it is, COVID or growth, or take anything and be successful in it. And so it is really fundamentally grounded in a cynic talks about it. Many folks talk about it, organizational folks talk about it, but it's your why, it's your how, and it's your what, right? Like organizational purpose,
Yeah.
and we call it pathway. And I'll dig into this here in a sec a little more. And then the impact that the organization has. And the impact has always been for us being able to close educational equity gaps, right? Bring this education to the populations that did not have access to it, whether geographically or economically, and kind of elevate, right? Recreate, transform essentially models of education and transform employment models with it on our path to contributing to the improvement of health outcomes and health equity in this country. So that's the impact. But going back to the pathway, that's really the how. So innovative design is by design within the company, and everything that we do is mindfully organized and structured in a way that allows then our collaborators, our employees, to be able to create, to unleash that part of their humanity without fear of failing, because you will fail, right? Absolutely right. You will fail on the way to doing this. But drive, just innovative spirit and evolving constantly everything that we do, evolving the roles, evolving the technology around them, evolving the processes. Nothing stands still. And that's, very much by design, this challenging the status quo and questioning it constantly, and trying to not just improve, right? Not just change sort of incrementally, but transform these systems that drive outcomes. Collaboration is the other one, right? Doing it together. I remember early days, we had 17. When I came into Nightingale, we had 17 students. And in the associate degree nursing program.
Are you kidding me?
No, yeah, I wrote. And it's at the time, I said, hey, I'm going to wear all the hats I can. I was the financial aid director, and I was the HR director, and I was doing absolutely everything, and like one would in a small organization. And then it is so cool to see we just crossed 1,000 collaborator mark in just recently, in the past couple of weeks.
Congratulations!
And it is so fantastic to feel this collaborative spirit and the people around that are aligned to their roles and have this passion for our purpose and our impact and driving this forward. So it is totally, everybody says it, but it truly is. It's totally a team sport. And again, the structure of the organization allows every single person within it to engage their skills and engage their humanity and engage their ingenuity to drive these things forward. By the way, you're talking turnover. The industry, this is the latest data from I think it's a human resources organization of some sort. The national human, I forget the exact name, but the higher ed turnover last year was at 35% nationally. We're at 13.
Victory!
Indeed, precisely. So people love it. And I can tell you this, from being a destination employer now, we continually win, which we're just named by, I think it's Energage and in collaboration with USA Today, top education employer in the mid-size companies. And then we've crossed into a large category while we were pursuing that designation, but it truly is, and we get awards for happiness within the organization and best place to work for women and on and on and on. And so again, all by design, because it is designed to drive it. And then certainly we have this the third piece of the pathway is evolvitude, which is we invite everybody into this space of self-governance, of growth mindset, and responsibility and transparency, and driving essentially themselves and keeping themselves up. Humans are, capable of incredible things, both collaborators and learners. And so it's just designing, and my thing has always been designing the structures, frameworks, models that allow then the systems that allow people to thrive and then push into this space of creating and doing better and improving, innovating, and building around them. And this is the success of the company lies in that. I truly believe that. I'm rewriting a chapter I have done for over a decade now. This is the fourth edition. And this text specifically designed for the Doctor of Nursing practice, and it's organizational financial management, essentially, for Doctor of Nursing practice programs, and it's been used in many DNP programs across the country, leadership programs. And so I'm constantly, and this rewrite again, it's my learning of the past 5 years from Nightingale, and from being able to design and maintain this framework that then drives incredible outcomes. And this has been documented in literature for quite a while. There's a 2016 book called An Everyone Culture that came out and describes these organizations like Nightingale that are able to, again, harness human potential and then channel it towards these incredible outcomes. And so growth is one thing, but we serve diverse populations, very diverse, both demographically and socioeconomically. We graduate the same proportions of this, which is very, very important, while maintaining over 70% persistence to completion rates, which are in pre-licensure nursing programs. That's a really, really high number. And also getting them licensed, getting them into the profession, and then being loved by their employers. I mean, what else can you ask for, right? So very, very, proud about it, and certainly humbled by the ability of all these folks that collaborate with me to be able to do these incredible things.
The fascinating part about your answer, it's funny because I've recorded 1,100 episodes over the last 5 years, and almost over 400 college presidents. And when I listen back to my interviews, like when I interviewed you, to now, I noticed that I ask way better questions now, and I've learned how to perfect those questions to open up the opportunity for the guest to take things the way they want to take them. And so going back to what I asked you, I asked you a functional question about tactics and about structures and how you prepared the business. And you, as a nurse, as an educator and a nursing educator, answered with a human, not with AI, not with technology, which is where a lot of leaders would have led. They would have talked about infrastructure, technology, readiness, artificial intelligence now, and people. The only thing you talked about was people. Psychologically, looking at what you do as a nurse and as a nursing educator, to say this is one of those industries where, yes, AI will certainly enhance the medical profession, but there is no replacement for the patient to medical professional relationship. And you said that without saying that, but there's a belief in people that we must hold true throughout this technological boom.
If you think you can coast into 2026, think again. Insights EDU is coming February 17th to the 19th, 2026, and it's taking over Fort Lauderdale for a beachfront experience. It's the event that will flip your marketing and enrollment strategy on its head. 3 days, over 65 expert speakers, and over 40 sessions. Zero fluff. Just powerhouse strategies from the most anticipated platforms like Google, Reddit, Meta, MIQ Digital, and the most forward-thinking schools in the nation. You'll get the real wins, the bold ideas, and the hands-on tactics to grow programs, drive engagement, and create the student experience today's modern learner demands. The question is, are you ready to lead, or will you get left behind? Mark your calendar, bring your team, and secure your spot at insightsedu.com. That's insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15, 2025. See you in Fort Lauderdale.
Absolutely. I heard this quote. I forget the attribution, but just recently that said AI has the potential of bringing us back closer to our humanity, and to really refinding maybe what it means to be a human being within an organization, or what it means to be a human being when somebody learns, right? And where there's so much bandwidth that opens up and extensions that open up through technology to allow you not to perhaps memorize everything, but have it readily available to you for as long as you know how to implement it. But yes, you're right, the human touch itself, right? No robot. Look, I don't know, maybe years and years from now, like where the robots are going to be so we've seen droids, right?
Yep.
in sci-fi, and so, but I think this connection, right? The one thing that humans have, and it's not just the touch of it, but the sort of the physiological thing that happens between us when we're together and in 3D. That's why I love, look, we do, it's coming up in a few weeks, a company-wide gathering of collaborators every year, and we've been doing it, we did it virtually through COVID, but we do it otherwise in person, and everybody comes out to Salt Lake for a few days just to have that human connection and to have the networking and to experience this energy that you do not experience otherwise. And so but what is human, right? What is human in truly in organizations? Imagining, like dreaming the ideas that are created and having time for that.
Yeah.
Imagine more time for human beings to be actually able to plug in to that very fundamental human ability to create and imagine things that may not be, right? AI is good, and AI can synthesize and create new things. However, like I'm yet to see it to go outside of what it knows, right? And the imagine sort of like way beyond the possibilities that are way beyond of what anybody can or have thought about before. And so that's very human. Compassion is very human. In education, well, I think the industry has just lost its ability to empathize with whoever that learner is, and truly meet them, not to demand from them something that and blame them for not getting there quick enough, but really connect with them on a human level and say, hey, how can I cheer you on, right? Or how can I help facilitate your journey through this? Because I understand, I'm a human being myself. I understand how difficult this particular piece may be. And so AI certainly opens up the opportunity for faculty to absolutely reimagine what it means to facilitate learning and what it means to deliver it, like away from information is completely democratized. So
right.
I mean, enough. Like PowerPoint is done. Content regurgitation is done. Nobody needs that. Like, so our job now is to figure out, like, well, what is the human component of it, and what is needed, and what cannot be substituted, right, by technology, and then use technology to augment our bandwidth to be able to truly engage in that way, with empathy, with compassion, human understanding of it, and again, an ingenuity. And and then when that happens, then again, our collaborators and why our systems and technology and everything constantly evolves, and they create things that are just incredible, is because the entire structure is designed to allow them to do that and to invite them into it. And that's why people love it and are able to create new things with the assistance of technology and look at it as a gift, essentially, right? That allows me more time to look at the sky if I
Yeah.
want to, right? Or outside the window and go like,
That's what
it's
CEOs
good.
do all day long anyway, aren't they?
Right. Exactly. Look at the clouds
What's
and
Mikhail doing?
dream
Hey, he's looking out the window again. There he is. Well, and
yes.
it's funny because the audience has probably figured this or going to figure this out when they listen or and thinking about it. Why hasn't he said employees once? Who are all these collaborators he's talking about? And
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
purposeful language you're using there.
Correct.
And I'm
Yes.
wondering what the mindset, how that affects the mindset of people internally when they're not referred to as an employee, but you start referring to people as collaborators.
Very much so. So language, as your listeners probably could tell, English is not my native language. And I do well enough,
You sound
in
fine to me.
in English. However, learning a new language, your brain tries to make sense out of things, right? And that's how it happened to me. And to build those new neural pathways for a new language, it has to everything has to be connected to meaning of some sort. And so language is very deliberate. Language is the fundamental tool of human communication. And words are every word must be used precisely.
Yes.
And employee has never felt, I'm like, what is that? Like, I understand it's somebody who shows up somewhere and gets paid for, pushing cogs around or whatever. Or and it never made sense to me of how I wanted to relate or what I wanted the experience to be with those people who work for me and with me. And so collaborator and collaboration came naturally. I'm like, exactly that, because
Nailed it.
alone, wearing a million different hats in the beginning and trying to do it, almost alone with just a few folks surrounded, and then as starting more and more and more, bringing more people into it, like, yeah, we're collaborating on creating this impact, and so it derived from there. We use language itself very deliberately throughout the organization. It's part of the design of the frameworks and the models that I'm talking about. A word learner is used. I've never called them students because it describes their role very, very well, right? They're there to learn, and that's their primary job. What does a student do? Study?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're spoken to. Yeah.
Right. So words like evolvitude, right? Evolvitude really captures our value set. And it's very simple. Again, it's self-governance, that everybody's invited to exercise through growth mindset, responsibility, and transparency. And it just tells people exactly how to show up, how to behave, how to make decisions, right? Purpose, this word purpose, and connecting that rather than something that, other folks call it vision, perhaps.
Yeah.
And to me, vision, look, is what is it? Like a hallucination, whatever, right?
Sometimes that's true. It is.
Hey, using this deliberate language and purpose again gives people meaning. It gives people the truly fundamentally gets into the why we do this, and why this is important, and why what you contribute to the impact that we have collectively is so important. And all of this mapped throughout impact, another word, right? Like the pathway, every single thing. Look, I said I'm an org design geek, and language is fundamentally both, I think, in organizations and in education,
Yeah.
It has to be deliberate, and we have, we forget about that because we're so focused on technology and process and system that then that kind of gets lost. But if it gets lost, then nothing else makes sense or has meaning to it, right? And that's why many organizations struggle, is because there's not as much deliberate thought and design really that go into figuring all of this stuff out. So stay tuned for a full book on this. But
Oh, I love it. Well, you say deliberate design, and
yeah.
when you grow, when you're in a period of growth, which you've been over 5 years, it complacency becomes the enemy of urgency, right?
Yeah.
And operating with urgency is difficult when you're always winning because you feel like it's just going to happen magically around you. And that's as much of an organizational development challenge as when there's underperformance and how you turn a team around. But how do you win the next championship every year? How do you win again? And the interesting part about the model is you didn't sit on your hands. You went off businesses, as it were. I don't know how those businesses are classified. Doesn't necessarily matter. What matters, though, to me, and where this question comes from, is that you labeled that function, that you gave it a different name, and probably have some of its operations separate of the mothership, because the mothership likes to eat other operations for breakfast. So you have to have some separation to say, here's this new business, here's this new function, and also simultaneously, and I'm probably taking your answer away from you, but thinking this is the demand of the student. This is how we move our business model forward. Here's how we separate out this function. And so there's time and place that's involved in that, right? Students or business, but also the branding, the separation, probably a license to innovate, and also revenue stream diversification in there. So bring that all together for me, and how do you just go, we need a separate business for this. So what is that, and why separate it in name and in maybe not proximity, not physical location, but certainly in function?
Great question. I mean, really and fundamentally, the carving it out is to give importance to it, right, and to give meaning to it, to assign urgency to it, and leadership that is fundamentally still connected to the mothership, as you say, but a president of the college has very different impact that they're after than the president of innovations, for example. And so it gives it, I feel like it assigns importance and urgency to this sort of function, because we could, it could sit somewhere within college as a research and development type thing, and not be called out, but then it gets because the mothership is big and generates way more revenue, right? Then it becomes sort of like an afterthought and not necessarily prioritized within other more important things, obviously, that are concerning the college, as high, and can constantly be on the back burner. But not to say that the impact of it is it drives them, right? It helps the college to drive its outcomes and to drive learner experience, and increase retention and completion and whatever else, and engagement, right? Like, to me, the innovations and the function of it was to create a more seamless and more engaging learning experience. And when somebody puts on, we use Oculus, so shout out to Meta here, but when they put on those goggles for a 15-20 minute scenario that is engaging, that isn't intuitive, and allows them to make mistakes and fail in a like epic way, but in a very safe manner, that produces a better outcome at the end of the day. That produces better competency at the end of the day. And without having that technology um, readily available to you and customized to what our particular needs may be, and our learners' needs are, and our employer partners' needs are, it very difficult, right, to connect the dots. But again, if it's all crumbled within, then it becomes an afterthought. And so yeah, it's underlines importance, urgency, and value of what it does.
Well, it's the so many colleges and universities struggle with that. They want to innovate. There's inertia internally not to create any kind of carve out, because then you can't control as easily, or those that want to control can't control it and therefore are against it. And so that carve out, I think, is just a really good, put a fine point on that. It's a really good strategy to enhance already existing operations with a new stream of thought, because immediately when you create that carve out, the thinking changes. It changes completely because you're not beholden to the bureaucracies necessarily. And many colleges and universities fail at that.
Yeah, and another thing to pinpoint here is that I had this conversation with the president of innovations when she was named early on, and said, "Look, the college is one of your customers, right? Like you still have to and must, like you can't run rogue either, right?
Yeah.
Correct. You have to make sure that their needs are being met." And so collaboration there still is very important, but you have also other things that your other customers that you're focusing on and must do. And so it has worked. Look, there's I mean, it's friction is human, and they had to work through the leadership of the college with the leadership of other divisions. Had to work through some things over time, but they arrived there, right? Again, because the structure itself, the model, our core frameworks allow for that to happen, and for people to arrive at this cohesion, essentially, that is required in order for something to be successful. So I in my wildest dreams, look, I knew I wanted to do something back 14 years ago, 15 years ago. I met actually the investor, our main investor, back in 2000, I want to say 2009, 10, and and kind of pitched this thing at the time, and which sounded absolutely crazy, right? From all fronts, from the organizational front, from the like educational delivery model, and so forth, but luckily he's agreed, and they've been supporting us ever since. But in my wildest dreams, I could not imagine what we've actually been able to get
when you
to
were
and
17 students,
build.
You're going to have a multifunctional college with side spin-off businesses that's near 10,000 students. It's a marvel, my friend. Well done.
Thank you, and especially in this environment that is not, as you know, has not been friendly to doing anything like it, and for a very long time. And yet we're able to, with all of that, we're able to be, sort of like one of the for-profit darlings list of the Department of Ed, right? So
it is very interesting to see how the regulatory environment is changing.
Oh yeah,
particularly as you see now, many some of the regulations talking about placement rates, if there's Pell Grants involved. Colleges and universities, those that are nonprofit, never are set up for career placement, haven't been for many years. And so you go, okay, wait a minute. Do I even want this new thing? I have long said that the for-profit sector, the tax status that it holds is a tax status, but the operational ecosystem that it runs in is so student-centric. It is all, because there is nothing else taking it away. There is no sports, there is no other things that sort of take away from that mission of this student must get through. They need their green light. They got to pass the NCLEX. They got to get them out into the market.
Exactly.
They're going to serve. They're going to serve these patients, and that's our best marketing that we can have. So there's no distraction from that student loop, and that's what's brilliant about the model.
Exactly. And look, this question is always asked of me, like, how do you manage to spend so much less than anybody else on marketing, right? Star cost per start and so forth. And I said, but exactly what you just described. Referrals, right? We have the word of mouth around it is so strong that we hardly need to do anything in some areas altogether, in some states altogether, in order for this to continue. People have a good experience. They tell other folks. They enroll and they tell all of their and many of them come from being a CNA and already being in healthcare and so forth, and they tell all their friends, and then their friends enroll and they tell their friends and family. And it's on and on and on, but that's exactly it, right? We would not have been able to compete at all or get that particular reputation at all if we were not, very crystal focused on learner and learning outcomes and the programmatic outcomes and getting them to graduation and getting them to the job that they've always wanted, which then catapults, for about 2/3 of our population that we serve comes from lower income.
Yeah.
And literally nursing is, and I probably mentioned it the last time we met, but it is one of the best socioeconomic mobility vehicles that this country has. I mean, somebody goes from literally living under the poverty line to middle class overnight after they get that license. I mean, it is incredible what it can do for an individual, for their family, for their community. And yet, again, I wish more educational institutions would focus on figuring out how, rather than keeping somebody away. And this is what nursing's done for a long time. Yep. We're keeping you away because, to begin with, you're unworthy of the profession. Figuring out how to get them into it, right? So they can be a solution to the shortage, and B, there is a macroeconomic benefit to moving people into the middle class, and nursing has so much to offer within that. So, hey.
Well, I asked you this last time we met. Last time we spoke on the podcast, and that was what you saw for the future of higher education. And I'm going to ask you the same thing now, 5 years later. What's the future look like for higher ed? What are you seeing out there?
Fully distributed, meaning, again, somebody does not need to leave their community in order to get the education that they want. Fully individualized. So it is, AI again can offer a coach that's with you constantly, right? That maybe perhaps built into your augmented reality glasses that observe what you do if you're performing a skill and give you feedback right away, and you don't have to wait in line for somebody to do that. And then where faculty and humans become much more engaged in that human component of it. So fully individualized, fully available, and actually, is not based on counting hours. When are we going to get away from that and really focused on developing competencies that are relevant, that are needed in wherever it is that this particular person would contribute economically in their job and so forth. So it is way brighter. Certainly many things in it, in this education of the, hopefully not too distant of a future, are redefined, because, for example, our notion of plagiarism, right? Like that, I mean, we have to change assessment.
Yes.
Right. Not sort of like how can we keep them away from using the tools that are available in order to complete this assessment that means nothing any longer, and call it, cheating and plagiarism and all of that, and rather design something that is a competency-based assessment that does use technology in a way that is, more and more salient, and so yeah, it is, and it's people anywhere can learn at any time, and that's what, and toward, and engage their passion, engage their humanity, and then go out there and again and contribute, and look, in nursing, yeah, we have to, and it's completely the regulatory structure of it also, if we go macro systems, regulatory structure of it and the finance structure of it completely changed, right? And so that's the future, and it's better. It is better than what we have today. And look, and we at Nightingale are so, and me personally, so committed to seeing that future through and ushering it in, right? Bring it about, and then we constantly share what it is that we learn and the models that we have at conferences and through publications and so forth, just to invite others into it. I was like, come on, let's continue evolving the thing that so needs to evolve to produce something better, something relevant, something connected to today and what we may need in the future.
Well, if you're not as inspired, I don't know what it's going to take, because this is inspirational for me. To hear you talk about the human element, it's just, I think we maybe are missing that. Not that it's not being discussed, but not maybe as passionately, that technology is taking over the conversation. We still run things around here, these human beings, and we need to take care of each other and make sure that we're, we're our purpose is focused, and that we're helping, in our industry, helping students succeed. That's why we do the work that we do. This is why I interview leaders like you, Mikhail, just to bring us that inspiration. You did an incredible job. Thank you for being here, and I hope you had fun the second time around, like you did the first time.
Absolutely. I'm happy to come back in another 5 or maybe sooner, and
maybe sooner than that next time. Well, I blame that on co-founder of the EdUp experience, Elvin Freitas, for that lag. Since he's not here, he takes the blame. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the one and only Mikhail Schneider. He is the CEO of Nightingale Education Group. If you're not watching them, they're on the move, so check them out. You've just EdUp'd.
Mark your calendars now for February 17th to the 19th, 2026. Because if you miss this, you'll be playing catch-up all year. This is the future unbound, and the most important higher ed marketing and enrollment management conference of 2026. Insights EDU is taking over Fort Lauderdale, where Google, Meta, Reddit, MIQ Digital, and top institutions nationwide will pull back the curtain on what's next. Are you ready to adapt or be left behind? Insights EDU 2026 is where leaders become game changers. Register now at insightsedu.com. That's insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th, 2025.